Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patricia Rooney, and I would like to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Pottstown. This morning, we gather virtually to make sacred spaces in our homes that join with our virtual sanctuary. Carly Shell will provide the music interludes, and many thanks to Rick Dusky for hosting our Zoom gathering today. UUFP has been a liberal religious voice in the Pottstown area for over 50 years. As UUs, we believe in a diversity of things, but we understand that reason and wonder can coexist, and we honor the teachings of those that have gone before, even as we find our own way into the future. No one is outside the circle of justice and compassion. And we hope that your spirit, your heart, and your mind are refreshed today and every day as we commit ourselves again to the 7 guiding principles. We gather not because we share a creed, but because we share a promise to support one another on the journey. Our services are different each week, but the loving kindness we offer one another in this community remains the same. Whoever you are, wherever you are, and whomever you love, we're glad to have you with us today. We're especially lucky to have Reverend Joan Sabatino talk with us today about the necessity for social justice. Reverend Joan served as minister for the first UU church in Indiana, PA for over 15 years. And during that time, she and the congregation worked together to change the image in the community by being a consistent, legitimate voice for liberal religion in a small, conservative Western PA town. UU of the first UU church in Indiana grew in many ways, and the congregation granted her emeritus status upon her retirement in June 2019. While in Western PA, Joan co-created and co-chaired the Center for Community Growth, a grassroots and progressive advocacy group. This group helped to elect several UUs to the Indiana Borough Council, the school board, and county commission. Joan moved to Harrisburg in the summer of 2019 to take on the job of Director of Legislative Affairs for UUPLAN, now called UUJusticePA. And she welcomes UUs from around the state to join her in Harrisburg to talk with legislators, either in their office there or in their office locally. But that will come after the pandemic is over. Right now, it's actually kind of convenient. You could Zoom those meetings. And it makes it sometimes a little bit easier to see your legislator and talk with them. So the move to Harrisburg gave Joan an opportunity to be closer to her siblings and her 3 adult daughters, 2 of whom married this past year, and both of whom are pregnant and are expecting in July. She already has 1 grandson. She's thrilled with 2 more. And welcome, Reverend Joan.
Thank you, Trish.
Yeah. So right now we have a moment for announcements. And if you have an announcement, you can wave at the screen and Rick will unmute you.
You have to mute yourself.
I have an announcement in that the UU Walking Club is meeting this Saturday, February 6th at Coventry Woods. And I'm going to be sending out an email about it with a little map Erica made a really nice map with the trail on it, so we're gonna follow that. So anyway, this Saturday at 10 o'clock, Coventry Woods.
So unmute yourself, Linda.
I was clicking the wrong button.
Yeah.
For the pledge drive, I have in the chat box a link to donate during time for collection. There's a new spot on our donation page that you go to once you click it that says Sunday collection. So, you know, it offers different ways that you can contribute. You can contribute to our Raise the Roof campaign, to your pledge, and to general fund through Sunday services. And we thank you all for your wonderful contributions. They've helped us out a lot so far. Thank you.
Yes, hi, unmute yourself, Judy, if you have an announcement. Well, I guess that's not.
Sorry, that was my fault. I saw Alan, I waved to him. No,
Oh, okay.
I have no announcement. Sorry, I'll mute myself again.
All right. Okay. So let me just see here. I think I lost my page. So the call, let's do the call to worship and the chalice lighting, please, Reverend Joan.
Thank you. Thank you, Trish.
Okay.
So Zoom does make life easier. I didn't have to worry about snow and drive to Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia, Pottstown today. So I'm grateful for that. Ours is a liberal faith grounded in our understanding of life as an ongoing co-creative process between humans, the natural world, and spirit, divinity, love. That which is known by many names and yet ultimately beyond our understanding. It is we, those assembled here this morning, who make this space holy by our attention and sacred by our intentions. The space we create together honors that dance of divinity with all of humanity in all its many colors and forms. For this hour, this Zoom room is our sanctuary this morning. In these difficult times when our hearts are filled with sorrow, grief, and confusion, uncertainties, we gather in community to support one another. Hold on, we will be in person again. We open our virtual sanctuaries across our country this morning because we know that hungry children and youth are our responsibility, no matter where they were born or the color of their skin, because we know that weapons are not toys and can be lethal in so many levels if not used responsibly. Feeding and protecting our young is important to us. We welcome all because we know that human sexuality is fluid, that a woman's choice belongs to her and her family and physician, and that a living wage and healthcare are human rights, not rich people rights. Accepting differences and caring for one another is important to us. And we welcome the other, because we know that isolation and separation do not enhance human life, that mental and emotional well-being, as well as physical, is important to us. We welcome all today and every day because we covenant together to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, even those who have made grave mistakes. A responsible penal system is important to us. And we welcome all this morning because we understand that we are all God's children. And this natural world is a gift we were given to tend, not destroy. The health of our environment and all existence is important to us. Come, let us be together for this hour. May we find here, surrounded in community, what we need to heal, and may we find the strength to reach out to the bruised and hurting world around us. Come, let us worship together. is our chalice. We light our chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, especially those who may have given up on being counted. We light our chalice to reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion to seek justice and true equality for all. And we light our chalice to power that love which unites us and moves us towards justice. May the light of our chalice flame guide our way, heal our hearts, and empower us to move forward with the work at hand. So may it be. I think we're going to try to sing or at least read. Thanks, Emily. So I see a few children scattered around here, although this is a story for all ages. It's what I call an oldie but a goodie, right? It's a wisdom lesson called The Long-Handled Spoons. And I've adapted it very slightly, and you'll see why in the very first sentence. A Unitarian Universalist minister, not a rabbi, asked God to give her a glimpse of what heaven and hell would be like. God agreed. And he asked the prophet Elijah to be the UU minister's guide on this adventure. Elijah first led the minister into a large room. In the middle of the room was a fire with a big, enormous cooking pot bubbling away. And in the pot was a delicious stew. Its aroma caused the UU minister to remember she had not eaten lunch. "Oh my, how delicious that soup smells," she said. But then she noticed, all around the cooking pot sat a crowd of people. They each had a long-handled spoon, which they were dipping into the delicious stew. But the people looked pale and thin and wretched. There was an icy stillness in the room. The handles of the spoons were too long. No one was able to get the lovely food into their mouths. When the two visitors were back outside, the UU minister asked Elijah what strange place this was. This was hell, Elijah explained. Then Elijah led the minister to a second room, which looked exactly like the first. And again, in the middle, a fire was blazing and a cooking pot was bubbling away, full of the same delicious stew. She could tell by the smell. And just like in the first room, people were sitting around the fire with the same long-handled spoons in their hands. Oh. Sorry, my screen just went away. Same. But here, people were enjoying lively, animated conversations with each other. Sounds like a UU coffee hour, she said. And the difference? Well, the people in the second room were not trying to feed themselves with the too long handled spoons. They were using the spoons to feed each other. Ah, heaven, said the minister. So I tell you that story this morning because we are all about building the beloved community, and we were all about, you'll hear in my sermon, a lot of the work of UU Justice is about feeding each other. I think Carly's going to give us a few minutes of musical interlude.
In this time when we're putting our physical distance between ourselves and our neighbors and our coworkers and our friends, it is sometimes difficult to feel close enough to connect over the parts of your life that are important to you. If you are weighed down with a sorrow or bursting with joy, please take this time to share with us what you feel. Unmute yourself. Go ahead, Judy.
Just something minor. On Friday, I had double foot surgery and no power walking, no hiking, walking for a while, but I'm on the road to pain-free walking. So that makes me very happy.
I will say that last week, Kay shared with us her awful story of her brother who recently passed away from cancer, a sudden cancer that they just discovered. And to keep herself occupied this week, she successfully wrote a letter to the editor on a social justice issue. And we're hoping that it will be published in the paper shortly.
Thank you, Trish. I really appreciate it. And I also appreciate everybody's calls and cards. Thank you so much. And Trish, who took my 600 and some word effort at an editorial and made it down to 250 and made it fantastic. Thank you so much. My first editorial.
Yeah.
Which paper?
I think she sent it to the Pottstown Mercury.
Yeah, the Mercury.
Keep your eye peeled. maybe we can, if we have no more sorrows and joys, maybe we can ask Carly again to just choose something and we will listen. You're muted, yeah. Sorry, you're still muted.
There.
There you go.
Got it?
Yeah.
Sorry. You know, I don't do this that often anymore in this job. Not a weekly experience for me. A reading from Theresa I. Soto's Spilling the Light, Meditations on Hope and Resilience. We hold on. There is a moment before dawn when the night is firmly in charge of the sky. There is no arguing with the opacity that holds both the fertile imagination and the cover of destruction. Just hold on. There is a moment when the dream we dream is newly born, wet and wriggling in our hands. Sometimes it's true that salvific futures look vulnerable and small before us. We remain unsure. Just hold on. Anything good was small at first. You know that Dr. King said, "I have a dream." It definitely was not the "I have a reality" speech. It was real in a different way that could be felt, that could be shared. They held on. That dreaming speech happened in August 1963. And you know what came before? April, a letter from the Birmingham jail. One moment did inform the other, but the future is being built, could not be known with certitude. They held on. We gather, Unitarian Universalists, certain only of our power to be human, finding ourselves committed to keeping our world and being our covenant. And when we fail to keep our promises, we don't throw them away, labeled as impossible. We take up our courage, we begin again, we hold on. Sprinkled in the wind, we can hear the questions. If we are not white supremacy shaped into religious robes and rituals, then who are we? We are present, both in attention and in the answer. We are here. We hold on. We contain multitudes, not just of questions and contradictions, but also of possibilities. And we continue to labor for the dream of community in which all of us, not just each, but every part of us, is welcome in our home faith. And then it was 2020, 67 years after the dream speech. And we are still waiting for the dream to come true. We have been waiting too long, still striving for the dream of democracy, for the dream of beloved community, still trying with all of our being to hold on, seeking a way towards reconciliation, to learn to love again, to learn to turn from hate and greed to acceptance of all. And then God sent the plague, as in ancient times, to wake us up. And as the deaths increase on humans by humans with human created weapons, and from the invisible mutant variant virus, death comes, numbers unfathomable, and we become numb to the numbers, numb to the loss, some days numb to life. We try so hard to hold on. Without family gatherings, without seeing children and grandchildren, with life on Zoom, how do we heal? How do we grieve? And then holding on still with fingertips getting raw and tired. And then comes 2021 and the attack on our house of government. A sacred space like our sanctuaries. Our leaders and their staffs cowering under desks and behind barred office doors. Hearing the screams of disruption and violence, hiding in fear, calling family members to say, just in case, I love you. The images, whether on screen or in incomprehensible language, attack, violence, insurrection, death, incompetence, in our government, in our security forces, in our leaders, conspiracy, collusion, lies. But it's not a movie, it's real. I invite us to take a breath. Hold on to this space and this community, which we need so desperately in these times. We are living in difficult times, more than difficult, precarious, frightening, chaotic. Insert the word you would use to best describe the realities of what we are going through. I fear that as a nation, we have lost our grounding, lost our collective dream of all that democracy can be, lost our sense of welcome. Our experiment may be collapsing. From today's vantage point, we can certainly see more clearly its fragility. I ponder the moral question of how our founding fathers, and fathers is the right word, for as we know, women were not at the table, slaves were property, and we carry with us the sins of a prosperous, thriving, vital democracy experiment built on stolen native land and from inception unequal. And how did the framers of our Constitution, knowing this, how could they ever have imagined success based on these foundations? I ponder also the Civil War, which came to life on January 5, 2021. But that's a whole sermon, and I'm not going to get down that rabbit hole. But as a nation, did we do enough to heal after the Civil War? A war that left 620,000 individuals dead. Did we take the time to ponder what we had just lived through? Did we take the effort to fully experience reconciliation? Or is the Civil War another of our sins left unreconciled, left misunderstood, left to haunt us still? And while we know that the Civil War was about economics, it was also about people, Black people, slaves, how their ancestors were treated and how Blacks still are treated in our country. The need for an organization called Black Lives Matter says it all. The struggle of our Black friends is so important to the survival of our democracy. What we do today will frame the rest of our democratic experiment. For not only do they have the suffering of our white sins of slavery within their Black bodies, but they also know intimately, know fully concepts like white supremacy, police violence, driving while Black, the talk, a prison system fed by young Black men and women, poverty, an unequal education system, unequal health statistics, and no way out. And we still keep accumulating sins. You'll recognize my Roman Catholic upbringing when I tell you that I am waiting to hear about the miracle that the Statue of Liberty is shedding tears of shame for our current immigration policies. Although the rioters carried the badge of honor flag with them into our capital, the issue we know is no longer North against South. Migration of the people of our country have turned that notion all around. Rather, today we are at war, literally, between those who feel they have not been cared for nor heard by the government they attack. The dream of democracy is certainly the best idea of governing we humans have come up with. There are small communities around the world with creative and some ancient ways of being in the world. Less and less, because now the invasion of technology, even these small communities have cell phones. But certainly democracy is the Western world's promise and its dream. Up until a few years ago, the world looked to our country as a model, a stellar example. For all our foibles, missteps, errors along the way, what took centuries to build now teeters after only a few years. If you haven't heard the president of Ukraine talking about how he felt on January 5, Google it. It's worth a listen. I became director of UUPLAN, now UUJusticePA, in August of 2019. The mission of UUJusticePA is to promote justice by voting, advocating, and making just public policy. I'm going to take a few minutes to flesh out why we came up with that mission. I'm firmly committed to my position that justice is a part of who we are as Unitarian Universalists. Justice lives in our history. I already mentioned the framers of our Constitution. Then there's the transcendentalist and the abolitionist leaders. Theodore Parker, who preached with his revolver under his pulpit to protect, if necessary, the slaves he invited into his sanctuary. UUs were part of the Underground Railroad, particularly in Pennsylvania. Think of the Sharps in the 1930s and their Jewish children they saved from Eastern Europe before World War II. Think of the worldwide social organizations we create and maintain. The UU Service Committee, the UU School of Social Justice. Think of our annual statements of conscience at General Assembly regarding all sorts of social justice issues, from women's rights to immigration rights and environmental rights, among others. And think of what we learned as we worked for these justice issues. The way we need to become part of these communities, not overtake them on any level. Justice is a part of who we are as Unitarian Universalists. It has become my mantra. I don't think we can separate our UU principles, our UU values, our UU ideals from the reality that justice is at our roots and feeds our daily lives. So our mission is 3 points. One is voting, essential to our democracy. And democracy is not a spectator sport. We all need to pay attention before we lose it. We all must hold our elected officials accountable. We all need to participate in continuing to build the democracy we dream of. I don't preach a political message, I preach a moral one, because justice is a part of who we are. And use of the democratic process is in our history and in our principles. The core of UUJusticePA is advocacy. The main emphasis is to follow legislation, develop strong partnerships with collaborators, and make sure that our legislators know who we are. This, of course, has been made a bit trickier with COVID-19. You might think it's easier because we don't have to travel, but it's harder to get them to talk to us on Zoom. It takes an extra step, and they push back consistently, they being the General Assembly. But UU Justice has 6 justice teams: criminal justice reform, economic justice, environmental justice, good government, gun violence prevention, and reproductive justice. Doesn't one of them speak to your heart about justice in PA? Some of our teams meet on Zoom every month, some every other month. And we have an all UU team meeting every other month to share news and information. For example, the current hot button is judicial gerrymandering in Pennsylvania. And the third point of our mission, a seat at the policy-making table, because we need Unitarian Universalists to be involved at this level. We had 4 UUs run for political office at the state level this past election cycle. One was, they're all from Pennsylvania, sorry. We gave them, UUPLAN gave them financial donation, and we had conversations with them about their priorities and needs. We could do this work because the founders of UU Justice were smart enough to file paperwork for a 501(c)(3) and a 4C. So this allows us to do a percentage of our work supporting elected officials with whom we have the same vision for our future. Individuals who are fair, who we deem as fair, just, responsible, and honest. Now, here's a few realities I want to share with you about Unitarian Universalists and justice in Pennsylvania. According to UUA congregation certifications as of January 2020, there are 5,300 UUs in 37 congregations across PA. Our suggested membership donation is $40, but we will accept any amount that suits your budget. We say that right at the top of our donation page. So how many UUs do you guess might be members of UU Justice out of 5,300? Approximately 350. And we gained 100 of them since our overwhelmingly successful fundraiser last summer. There is a myth that I realized recently also about Unitarian Universalists in Pennsylvania. When asked what area of our state has the most UU residents, most would answer Philadelphia. In actuality, and this information again is based on January 2020, certification numbers, 1,785 UUs in Philadelphia and the surrounding suburbs. The Pittsburgh cluster of churches has 1,074, and what is finally known as the T, the rural, western, central, northern districts of our state boast 2,446 members, book-signed members. At least half of our congregations are smaller, like yours, and are what I call often small blue dots in a sea of red. And I'm on a mission to pay more attention to those smaller congregations, because there's a lot of Unitarian Universalists out there. One of our partners in Harrisburg, Rabbi Michael Pollack of March on Harrisburg, promotes the idea of money out, people in. He believes that overall Pennsylvania is the third from the bottom of our state when ranked for corruption. Did you know that there is absolutely no limit to the amount of money an individual, a lobbyist, a concerned constituent, an organization, a corporation, there is no limit to the amount of money a representative or senator in the Pennsylvania General Assembly can receive. The first $250 doesn't even have to be reported on the quarterly lobby forms. I say this to remind us how much work there is to do. And as I said earlier, we need to weigh up and, in the popular vernacular, stay woke. UUJusticePA, in order to promote the justice that Unitarian Universalists want and need, we need financial resources and we need people power. This is how we will make the necessary changes in our government. It's not a new theory. Power is people, is power, people is money. We have to get out the vote, choose reliable and committed elected officials, change the election laws and regulations, call voter suppression what it is, and work for the people, not money, in our Commonwealth. It is only if we do this that the other social justice issues we care about can be realized. Right now, our Pennsylvania General Assembly is gridlocked. Just legislation doesn't move through our system. Now, I do see hope. Sometimes out of tragedy comes necessary change. Not always, so I don't want us to be fooled or sweet talked into believing what is not going to happen. But the November national election gives me hope. If you're not aware, PA lost progressive seats, but we're going to change that. We're going to turn that around. A recent WITF, a news radio station out of Philadelphia, promises dogged, consistent, and reliable pressure on our Pennsylvania General Assembly. In a recent publication online, they listed all of the representatives and senators, both federal and state, Pennsylvania, who voted against certifying the Pennsylvania election in January. They and other news organizations promise to hold these individuals accountable. For the sake of our democracy, for the well-being of our state, I hope and pray we are waking up. One more thought. I think social justice is a doorway into Unitarian Universalism. More than any book club or social event for youth, young adults, children, social justice is an initiative that will call people to our faith, grow our congregations, and be a realistic on-ramp to who we are and what we care about. Rebecca Ann Parker, ordained Methodist minister, as well as a retired fellowshipped Unitarian Universalist minister, former dean of the Starr King School for the Ministry, in her reading In the Midst of a World, writes these words: "And there must be communities of people who seek to do justice love kindness, and walk humbly with their God, who call on the strength of soul force to heal, transform, and bless life. There must be religious witness. I suggest for Unitarian and Universalists have the potential to be that soul force witness. Why us? Because justice is a part of our theology, because it is a part of who we are. And also because UUs show up. We care, and our circle of care is wide and deep. Hold on. Join me for the work. Join in moving democracy forward in our Commonwealth. So may it be. I was told we're going to sing first. We're going to sing one more step.
Yeah, Rick, could you share that screen, or Emily? And Carly, help us out, would you? No, you're muted, Joan.
All right, there we go.
Yeah.
I was asked to remind all of you to go to your website to donate. And I didn't catch who it was, but someone recently sent a pledge or a donation into UU Justice and it was returned. So because the address was incorrect, so I put in the chat our web address, our snail mail address, and I'm just now putting in my information as well.
Yes, and so please, everyone, when you consider the work that the UUJusticePA does, I hope you will consider signing up to be a member. I think it's $40 a year. But the real vision in this is to keep you informed what's going on with the UU outreach plan. And maybe you would find one of those arms of UUJusticePA that you feel is important enough for you to spend some time thinking about and supporting. I would like that very much personally. Joan mentioned that this is a way to bring in congregants into our community. And actually that's true because that's the way I came to UU Pottstown. And my special focus is good government, but I feel badly that I can't divide myself up and do more for the other pieces of the UU Justice. And I'm hoping that you all will take up the slack and focus on the issues that you think is important. Well, it's time to close the service. So we extinguish the chalice with the words of Elizabeth Sell Jones, which we read, "We extinguish the chalice flame, but not the light of wisdom, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and in our hands until we are together again." Thank you for joining us today, and please stay around for the virtual coffee hour.
So I have a benediction